the God of this city. You're the King of these people. You're the Lord of this nation. You are. You're the light in this darkness. You're the hope to the hopeless. You're the peace to the restless.
Testing, testing.
Hello. Testing. Sure.
Can you hear yourself from the monitor? Can you hear it from the monitor?
Yeah, it like
definitely
comes
can hear it
back.
from the sound system.
Hello, hello, hello.
It's coming out of the monitors.
You hear it, like it echoes back. I'm not good at hearing that. Okay. I just do what people tell me to do. I know nothing. Is it coming through? No? Really? Testing, testing. Through the monitor. You're hearing it at your head, probably. Hello, hello. Oh, hello, hello. That'd be you. Hello, 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 hello. Is it coming through? I don't know what I'm hearing then. I guess just. Testing, testing. That's number 5. Testing, testing. Number 6. Here we go. And fill. All right. Testing, testing.
On the flip side, we're not going to have like any extra
Right.
sound, so we're probably not going to need them.
know, we're in the Hebrew heroes of faith, the of faith. And so far we've talked about Abel, Enoch, and Noah. And we talked about faith in the worship of the Lamb. That's Abel. We talked about faith in walking. As we looked at Enoch, he walked with God and was not. Then we looked at Noah, faith in working, as Noah for 120 years faithfully working. I think today's probably the hardest faith. Give me something to do. Put a hammer in my hand, put a Bible in my hand. Regardless, at least I'm doing something. But this one, these people we look at today, faith in waiting. That's the hardest faith. Waiting for the promises of God to come to pass. Knowing what He's spoken, desires of our heart, and yet still we wait. Verse 8, Hebrews 11, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith he dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob and the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundation, whose builder and maker is God. By faith Sarah herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born as many as the stars of the sky in the multitude, innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. Today's July 31st, 2022, for the recording purposes. The month of July. It's a special month, I believe. The month of July, we celebrate independence. We've changed the world as a nation. Absolutely. But 159 years ago, in the month of July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd to be specific, 70 miles from here, farmland. I believe every last one of us in this room, our lives were altered and changed. I believe possibly even some of us may not even be alive or born, because what happened on that farmland 70 miles from here, we know it as Gettysburg. The bloodiest war of the Civil War, 3 days, 180 roughly Union soldiers, 80,000 Union, 80,000 Confederate, converge on that point mostly just by happen chance. It wasn't a political importance, Gettysburg. It wasn't militarily strategic. It wasn't even economically strategic. All the things you would fight for as Richmond, Washington, D.C., supply routes and the likes. It was a happen chance for the most part of that war that happened there. 53,000 of our countrymen would die there over 3 days of fighting. To put that into the context, Vietnam Americans lost 58,000 in a 10-year war. We lost 53,000 of our countrymen in a 3-day war there. At stake was what we know as the United States of America. I'm not going to teach a history lesson on Gettysburg, but I want to put something into your thought process for our study today of faith and waiting. In that the South decided to succeed, break away from the Union of the United States for various reasons, slavery, of course, being one, economically another great reason of the whole matter. And there in that place in Gettysburg, what's considered by most, if not all, historians of American war history, the greatest general in the history of America was Robert E. Lee. And what he did and his strategies with what he had to work with and the amazing. Well, his thought and his point was that after the Virginia campaigns that he was going to come up into the north because all the battles were into the south. He wanted to come up into the Union land, which was Pennsylvania, and start making a push there that they're there to bring people to an end. I just want to get this war over with, and then cut off and separate the North from Washington, D.C., make the point, and hopefully come into a place of an agreement, of a peace pact that would then separate and allow a separation of the South and the North. And I call it, and I say, one of the bloodiest happen chances that happened there is, it was just a happen chance. It wasn't by design that they were going to come up and fight in Gettysburg. In fact, most people didn't even know the is this good land? Is this a good ground to fight on? And all the generals would say the same, this is amazing ground to fight on. It's an insane civil war that we went through. In the end, you'll read historically 620,000 American soldiers died. Lately, through some modern research abilities, there was a group that was able to go and look at the census thereafter the Civil War and look at the census, and they came to the conclusion, based on the census that happened right after the Civil War ended, 1865, we don't think, we're watching how many are missing from the census. They don't think it was 620,000. They think it was 750,000. This maybe isn't necessarily my point, but how can I not? In my hand are two authentic Civil War bullets. I just want to say, for anybody in your marriage, in your home, in your church, your family extended, this is what civil war will do to your marriage. This is what it'll do to your family. This is what it'll do with your relationship when you enter into a civil war with people that are your own blood, your countrymen. 750,000. But to move on to my point that I make about this is, as I said, it was a happen chance. You read the historical writings of General Lee and other commanders. They didn't plan to fight there. In fact, they were told, when we come into this place as we're trying to make our way, we don't want any engagement. So Robert E. said to his generals, you see any Union, I don't want engagement. I'm not looking for the fight right now. We'll choose the land that we fight on. So don't you choose it for us by engaging, but just by the happen chance, they did. A group thought they were coming against militia. They ended up coming against Union, and then it all begins on day one. And the most amazing point about all of this, the reason that the war turned into the war that it became and continued on to be the bloodiest battle in the history of America is because General Lee felt like he had to fight. You know why he felt like he had to fight? Because his general of his cavalry, who was to scout and then come back with informed information, eyes that saw, here's where Union forces are, here, here, here. So you can go there, there, there. That General Stewart, he missed it. He either didn't fully understand what his command that was given to him, or he was ambitious for something else. But he left General Lee there in Gettysburg blinded for 7 days. right and say I had to fight because I didn't know where I could go. I was blinded because I was not informed. Therefore, I couldn't move my men and possibly move them into a bad position, into an unknown, because I didn't know what was there and who was there. He at least knew in Gettysburg who was in front of him, and he knew what the land looked like. If you ever get out to Gettysburg, you can see it's a battlefield, open wide. And what I want to say for us as we walk this place of faith, I make this statement: that battle happened because there was a whole army that was not informed. And the battle became, and the death toll rose, and all these decisions made by a general who literally would say, I was fighting blind. What he expected from General Stewart was to hear what the general saw, even though Lee didn't see it himself. But what he heard, he would make his decision on. I want to just tell you, as a Christian, as we study and come into this place of faith, faith in waiting, we don't walk in a blind faith. Everybody that we've read, everybody we will read through the rest of our chapter for these weeks to come, they all had the exact same thing in common as you read their story. They all heard the voice of the Lord. And for us, God doesn't lead us into a blind faith. Oh, it's step by step for sure. But there's a place that we step into knowing that we've heard God's voice, and what He scouted for us and spoken is then what we can move forward with and do. We don't fight blind, but we fight with, we step forward with, in faith, that God's Word becomes our eyes. And I know that's hard. I've had some long waits. I'd rather go to Gettysburg, if you would. Because then I can see something. I can be doing something. But faith in waiting, probably the hardest place for us. But as God speaks, what are you waiting for? Listen to God's voice. It's what we've been building up to, studying, worshiping the Lamb, faith in the worship of the Lamb, faith in, as Enoch was, he walked with God and he walked. We studied that last week. Noah, before he built, he walked. He was known, he walked with the Lord. And as we walk, we studied, it's a conversation, and God speaks of what's next in these steps. Look, God's Word becomes our eyes. And so, Father,